Cinematic advantage. Here we go. So this is the grant advantage to a character the first time they try anything, or they try it at a particularly important moment. This is to cinematic advantage is a way for the GM to indicate, are we playing Dick Tracy or are we playing Boardwalk Empire, right? How cinematic do we want to be, right? If it's Dick Tracy, and I think this shit is important. This is important to have this conversation during session 0. Like, what do we want stunts to look like? How do we want that to play up, right? Are you going to get stunts from swinging from a chandelier, or is that just like an insane thing no person should do because the chandelier will break and you'll fall? How realistic are the laws of the universe? I would have this conversation beforehand so that so the players know how to play the game. They know whether or not to be comic book characters or more like gritty TV show type characters. Interesting. Okay. And then from there, characters helping you, if they have the right skill, they give you an extra flip. Reaction checks are free action that the GM asks for, right? You have to roll, or you have to flip. These are like initiative and checks to avoid damage. And then if everybody works together, everybody makes flips, and if at least half of you get it. So it's a lot like D&D's group skill checks. I'd love to see an ability that lets you, because here's the thing about having a strong base rule set. Once that base rule set is established, if it is strong and firm and like doesn't break if you fuck with it, you can start making superpowers that let you do things like draw from other people's decks. So for example, if you know you've already used your ace of spades, but Jimmy sitting next to you, he hasn't, you can say, I'm going to use my probability adjustment power, and I'm going to reach over and I'm going to draw a card from Jimmy's deck. I'm going to play Jimmy's top card, right? Yeah. Or like, I'm going to trade decks with somebody else, or yeah, that's pretty cool. So if you know the GM is about to get blackjack and you have like a cool ability to sneak in there and grab their power. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah. I could also see a group check where everybody takes turns flipping cards to see of all of you who gets the best result. Yeah. Or like a weird mental gestalt thing where two characters shuffle their decks together and they always draw from the same deck, right? Like if you have like the Wonder Twins, we now both use this 104 card deck instead. Or like maybe you make a separate, like you make a new deck out of two of them. Yeah. Heal somebody's probability by putting discard back into their deck. You can steal all kinds of stuff from collectible card games and from regular like card games too. Yeah, neat. That is pretty damn cool. I like that a lot. Okay. So Moxie, you have a pool of points called Moxie you can use to gain benefits in the game. Moxie represents effort and determination you exert when they need to succeed. Okay, all right. So you can spend, there's like a table. Oh, fun. Oh, that's so fun. Okay. You can spend Moxie to increase your card count, right? Get advantage. But you can also reduce damage with Moxie. You flip a card. It's a gamble because as we noted before, right? This is a big part of the game. Where was it? There was that sidebar. It's all a gamble. Right? So there are lots of opportunities in the game where it could give you a flat bonus, but instead says, draw a card, right? So we can spend Moxie to flip a card to reduce damage. We can gain a boon. Gain a boon on a successful check, normally allowed, but currently without one. So this is like, you get some additional, you bump up the narrative value. Shaping the narrative, right? This is the story points from Genesis. Spend a Moxie and say, oh, well, this building, it's got an old tunnel underneath it that connects us to the sewer. Yeah, because it was part of the Underground Railroad. Yeah. Boom, Moxie. Now I want to play this game. This feels like a better game for playing Eberron than Dungeons and Dragons does. Like, change the card deck to like a fantasy card deck and restructure the powers to be like wizards and warforged and stuff. Like flipping cards and like spending Moxie and stuff. Yeah. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons characters are just fantasy superheroes, so that makes sense, right? So you can also spend Moxie to take an extra trait action. This is cool. Recall a card, right? So you can recall a card from the current, but only from the current roll, right? Or the current flip. So if you're like, if you're greedy, Moxie can help you back from that. So if you're like, I flip a 4, an 8, and then, oh no, a 2, I'm going to spend a Moxie. Let's move that 8 up. So you recall the Moxie, use Moxie, you call it up, and then reshuffle your discard pile. You can play a Moxie to reshuffle your discard pile. So basically, if you play your ace of spades at the beginning of a scene, definitely you Moxie to reshuffle that ace back in, so you might get it during the scene. Okay. And then self-sacrifice. When a character is adjacent to your character takes damage, you take the damage instead. I can absolutely see somebody having powers where they get to stack the deck, right? Where it's like, for the remainder of this scene, go through your deck and remove 8 cards. Those cards don't count. You could also use like a bad luck power on the GM and say, make the GM go through their deck and remove 5 cards or whatever, right? Or something like that. Or like cut the deck so they only have half or whatever, right? Yeah. Oh, it's so fun. There's so many little ways you could tweak the thing, and a Superpowers game gives you that ability. That's really interesting. So let's see. All right. How do we get Moxie? Yeah, right. Exile the top 5 cards, millstone the GM, right? Like those are all now available to you in a role-playing game. Yeah. Okay, so the GM awards Moxie. Each time any of these things happen, it looks like Moxie is the core award system in the game, but I'm curious about advancement. How often do we advance? Okay, so let's see here. Gaining Moxie, we get Moxie at the end of an encounter if it was significant enough that the story moved forward and you were involved. So was this a big scene for you, or were you a background character? Okay, sure. Your character demonstrates their identity, stays true to their virtue, or their vice causes trouble, right? We saw that. So that's good. Your character does something cool or impressive. You are entertaining enough that all the other players in the GM agree you deserve a prize. This is when chat freaks out over a moment or a joke, right? This is the like, oh my God, you made everybody at the table burst out laughing, or like you made one of the other players tear up. Like this is the big character moment, right? I like this. Your character botches and the GM assuages your pain with minor recompense. That's cute. So the GM can give you, if you blow it, right? Botch, failure with clubs. Yeah, when you botch, the GM awards you 1 Moxie to mitigate your losses. Sorry. Yeah. No, I love it. I love the idea that you're spending your time playing your character, but also trying to play the other players and play the GM to be like, all right, I'm going to try to jump off the roof and land in the back of this car. Would you say that's difficult? Yeah. All right. Just flop some cards. Let's see what happens. Oh my God. Zeke would love this game. Yeah, I think so too. Deep characterization, opportunity to play like a gruff criminal, getting to do fun voices, cards. Yeah, I think you're right. I think Zeke would like this game. This would be fun to do a one-shot of, I think. I don't know that I would be the person to run it, but I'd love to put it in front of some people to try it out. Yeah. Huh. Cool. How'd you implement it in Roll20? There's already cards. There's card decks in Roll20 that you can just draw from, like the tarot card that we made for Court of Swords, the tarot deck. Cool. All right. Well, let's take a look. I'm not super interested in looking at how combat works. Oh, there's already a full module for it in Roll20. Holy shit. Well, there you go. So it's got chips, the character sheets. It's got I assume some background stuff, themed cards. Hey, there you go. That's how you do it. Cool. There you go. So if you're playing on Roll20, check out the marketplace. Actually, you know what? While we're talking about it, I'm gonna take a look right now. I'm actually really curious. Because obviously that's my preferred method. Let's take a look. Here we go. Okay, so this is the Roll20 version from Nerdburger Games. It's got a bunch of extra layout. Here we go. Complete player and GM rules, setting information, several backdrop cities, a variety of 1920s maps and tokens for use in play, and uses player playing cards, including Capers themed playing card graphics for use in Roll20. So it's the whole game, and then all of the stuff you need to play it in Roll20 mode. That's pretty cool. It's $15. Go check it out. Neat. Cool. All right. Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look. I want to get to the superpowers stuff, right? Like, it looks like it does have like a specific mental and physical combat model, right? With dealing damage, with range and rounds. It's got all of that in here. But what I want to know about is superpowers. Superpowers. I want to see this. I want to look. Yeah, I think Mads, I think you would do a great job GMing something like this, because I imagine this is in your wheelhouse. It's outside of my experience, but I would love to see. Yeah, and there's a YouTube Roll20 stream of it available. So if you go on YouTube and look for Capers RPG, and you'll find some actual play. So that's cool. All right. Okay. So types of powers. They're divided into major and minor. You can use a boost from your power to give you an advantage when you use it. Temporarily, your powers can be deactivated by mysterious effects. So if they are, you don't get any of the advantages of your power. Okay. All right. So anything else and this is a nice little section. Anything else that is not described in the power is up to you. So like if you might have heat beam, but it might be a fireball, it might be lasers from your hands, it might be mental energy that lights someone on fire, right? It's up to you to decide how that manifests. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's take a look at these powers. So it looks like they are menu style rather than ingredient style with various boosts. And I want to check, do you get all the boosts or do you buy them? Oh no, you just choose to use them, and you can use up to 3 of them from different powers, 1 from each power on your action. Okay. Got it. Okay, cool. So let's take a look. We got powers like acid stream, which you can spit acid on people, alter form, body armor, organ shifting. That's pretty cool. So you can be like marrow. Actually, the bone spurs. Cold beam, concussion beam. So it seems like it takes all the superheroes, boils them down to their individual powers, and then says, if you're Superman, you have this, that, and the other. And so when we make a character, what was it for character creation? You got 1 major power. Let me see here. Here we go. You get a minor power at rank 2, 2 minors at 1, or 1 at rank 1. So if, for example, you wanted to be a character that had you could take body armor and bone shifting as your 2 powers. You could take cold beam and alter form. Okay, so it gives you a little bit of freedom. I wonder what the major powers look like. Dimensional manipulation is a minor power. What do we got for the major stuff? Flight, hypnosis, power sharing. Yeah, all the stuff you would expect, right? Psionic beam. Look at all these boosts too. Yeah, here we go. Dimension step is oh, they're broken down into major and minor. I see. So yeah, let's take a look. I want to look at probability manipulation. Here we go. Look at the top card in your deck and place it in your discard pile if you want to. Discarding a card with this power has no effect. Only one deck can be manipulated at a time. The player or GM must flip at least one card from the deck you manipulated before you can use this power again. And then you can use, if you want, let's see here. Yeah, it's scry, right? Instead of a standard effect, look at the top 3 cards of anyone's deck, rearrange them, and place them on top of that deck. Or look at the top card and place it of anyone else's deck and put it away. Or use this boost at the beginning of your turn. Instead of the standard effect, put the top card of your discard pile on the top. Your turn immediately ends. You can't do that with the good Joker. Or instead, look at the top cards. You can tell them what the card is. So this is seeing the future for someone else. Oh, that's so cool. And it all falls under... That's true. It's survey because you discard the card. I mean, it's got a bunch of different magic effects here, but yeah. So these are boosts, and boosts are, you don't buy them separately, right? Like they just come with more versatility. You declare which boost, you just get them. Oh, cool. All right. So if you take probability manipulation, you get all of this stuff. You can only use one thing at a time. And then you do, let me see. Cause it says here, minor powers, prior power check to use. Powers have boosts. You declare you're using one or more boosts at the beginning of your turn. Do we not start with all of the boosts together? Do we have to buy them separately? Yeah, it would say in character creation, right? Let me see. Each at rank 1. Gain a new major power or increase the rank. Oh, here it is. When you gain rank 1 in a power, choose 3 boosts. Each time the rank increases by 1, select an additional boost. Perfect. I was wondering, because it seemed weird if you had all of them, but it's as you level them up, your powers get broader. So you start with, right, okay. If we start with probability manipulation, we're getting 3 out of the 4 anyway. So in this case, we would just pick one that isn't the one that we want. And then later, if we increase the level, we could get it again. Okay. All right. Here we go. But powers listed as 1 can only be gained once. Powers listed with a range of numbers can be taken up to the maximum shown. So, for example, if we buy probability manipulation, we can't gain another level in it. So there's one of these 4 powers we'll lose for sure. But power sharing, we could take and gain 3 and then take it again and gain another set. Okay. Right. Powers at the maximum rank of your rank in this power. Awesome. Okay. So another level of granularity there in terms of what you're building. And it seems like it's got a pretty good selection of powers. And then rather than try to break, like I've seen systems that break invisibility down into, these would all be separate powers, right? Influence emotion would be like cause happiness, cause sadness, manipulate memory. Those would all be separate powers. So it seems like what it does is it creates clusters of abilities that fall under the same power set. So the superheroes in this tend to be quite broad with what they can do. And then I guess what I would do as a GM as part of session 0, as part of character creation, is just make sure that people don't overlap too much in their powers, right? Unless that's the theme, unless everyone in the group is a mimic, you'd want to be like, all right, so try to create niche protection, because often the characters are built around their powers, right? Like Cyclops, and I don't know why I'm choosing him as my example here because he sucks so bad, but Cyclops' superpower is eye beams. If he was in a team with 3 other dudes that could shoot lasers out of their eyes, Cyclops would need something else going for him. And unfortunately, the only other thing Cyclops has going for him is that he's a whiny mama's boy. So that becomes his character, right? Like in a group where everyone is human, we look for other ways to differentiate them. In a group where they're all superheroes, it's not this guy has superpowers and no one else does. It's we all have superpowers, what powers do we have? And if everyone's powers are the same, then you have to look for the second tier. So it's like, if it's Team Cyclops and everybody shoots beams, then maybe it's heat beam, cold beam, psychic beam, or it becomes their other condition. So it's like Rebel Cyclops and Nerdy Cyclops and Suck Up Mama's Boy Cyclops. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I would lean into encouraging that for sure. Cool. Okay. And then with our exciting 150 1920s dollars, we could buy, Jesus Lord, we could buy 1/10 of a 5-passenger sedan. Okay, now I gotta find out how much that is in 1920s money. $1,050 1920s money. Let's see here. No, not British pounds. No. Nothing interesting was happening in England in the 20s. 1920s. USD. A lot, I think. Here we go. Also, I wanted to figure out how much the average person made in a year. Okay, so that's actually pretty cheap. If you're buying a Roadster, in 1920, it's only going to cost you, in today's money, $13,000. Like, it's a lot, but like, you basically just add a zero and then a little bit. So it's like 13 grand in today's money. So then how much average yearly income, America 1920s? I mean, it depends on what time during the 20s. Okay, so the average person in 1920 in America, the average filed income tax return was $3,269. So you start the game, and I don't know why I'm obsessing over this, but you start the game with 6 months of income, right? You got 6 months of money in your pocket. You could buy a used motorcycle and have $50 left over. But remember, you're playing criminals. So you got to turn that $150. You turn that $150. You turn it up. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, cool. So this is a cost list. This stuff, again, it's important because A, it tells us what to do with the resources we're given, and B, it tells us what is available in the world. What should our characters care about, right? Glass of beer. Even an illegal glass of beer is only 10 cents. Because you'd think it'd be way more expensive. Though I guess regulation adds tax money and it goes down. Like, you can buy weed from your dealer even if weed is legal, but the legal weed you're buying, you're also paying the government ostensibly, and the rent of the store you bought it in, or whatever marketing expenses, and your dealer has none of those. So you're buying, right, thin ass bootleg beer, right? Your cheap liquor is cut with water. You know, your whiskey's about 3%. Yeah. Okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah. This would be a good fit for the last superhero game that I played outside of Masks, right? The last like time superhero was I played Adventure, which is a 1920s. It's World of Darkness. It's their 1920s thing. And I played this, Jesus, back in like the early 2000s. It was pretty fun. We did a Gotham City, but Batman died on his first night out. So like Batman put on the cowl and the cape. He went out to fight crime and he got murdered. He was just killed his first night. Some gangster shot him. And then he died and everyone had a big funeral for Bruce Wayne. And the characters, the players, were all either directly connected to Bruce Wayne or they were inspired by him and they became a superhero. Oh yeah, that's right. We played Spectaculars too. I forgot about that. Yeah, and so the characters were all basically copycats trying to do better than Batman, who in this alternate universe Gotham died on his first night, right? Because we wanted to play off the like arrogance of the rich and how Batman was like, I can solve this problem. I've got money and karate and I'm crazy. And so he got killed. The Joker still existed. The Joker was still the bad guy, but the Joker wasn't the like mentally unhinged Joker that we see in stuff today. He was just a gangster who like used that as his theme. Was there still an Alfred? I can't remember what we did with Alfred, but like I think so. Who got all of Batman's money? What did we do with that? There was like a trust or something. I think I was gonna use it as a plot for the second like issue, but we never got to that. We did one arc that was basically just fighting gangsters and being in the 20s, and one of the characters died, and it was cool. It was like a fun, gritty, like you basically played those guys in hockey pads from the beginning of The Dark Knight, right? Like copycat Batmans. It was fun. Yeah. I'm trying to remember the characters. There was like Misadventure and none of them had superpowers. Misadventure, she was like an explorer or something. And she had just come back from like the Congo or someplace and was like, I can't cut it out there. We're coming back. Yeah, Gotham City Imposters. Yeah, right. But there was no real Batman. There was the Moth. I think somebody played essentially the sidekick from what's this called? Tick. Yeah, somebody was like a communist too. Yeah. Yeah, it was like they were vigilantes, like not quite superheroes. It was good though. Yeah, it was fun. Anyway, this game reminds me of that. It's nice to reminisce about that game because we could have played that game using this system very, very easily, I think. So anybody who thought that Trembium was anybody who had their money on Trembium being unobtainium, right? The magic material, you were right. It is an optional interjection into the world, and this is if you want Warpstone in your game. It can be shot directly into your bloodstream to give you superpowers, which sounds terrifying. There is a material called anti-trembium, and they have invented guns that shoot trem wave and anti-trem waves. So that's fun. I like that it's optional, right? It's like, this is really more of a like a 50s vibe, but if you want to tag that in, like we didn't really get super science as a thing. Like there were robots in 20s spec fic for sure, but yeah, this almost feels like we're leaning into like a 40s and 50s kind of vibe. If you want to go Tesla punk with it, this is a way to draw that into the game. That's cool. I like that it's optional, right? Because it does deviate from the theme, and I like that the authors are aware of that. Yeah, cool. All right. Oh, that's cute. We get a comic, right, to let us know kind of what the game is about. And I gotta say, I like how deep into the book this comic is. Thank you, Capers, for resisting putting this comic at the front. Thank you. It doesn't belong at the front. This is a great place for it. It's cute too. It's got kind of like a good like webcomic vibe. I'm into it. Yeah, and it separates the player and the GM side. I like the simplicity of the art too. It's got good like bloom kind of lighting effects. Also, I don't know who this monster lady is, but I am terrified. Like, yeah, okay, guy with a gun, sure. Flying guy and fire lady, but what is going on with Vampirella over here? Terrifying. You're big shadow hands. Get the fuck out of here. But yeah, I mean, this kind of stuff is important to set the tone. And what's interesting is that superheroes come from comic books, but the 20s didn't really have any superhero comics. Like if you're doing a game set in 1960 and you want a whole bunch of comic book material, there you go. You got it. It's really easy. But if you're doing a comic book, like inspired like a superhero game set in the 20s, it's anachronistic by design because the referent comes after the setting, which is interesting. It's in the same way, like you have to envision your own aesthetic if you do a medieval superhero game, right? You have to interpret through the lens of like, what would people, okay, here's the thing. If you were walking down the street today and you saw a man walk out of a phone booth wearing a skin tight spandex outfit, and a cape, and he flew off into the sky, your first thought, besides, I didn't just see that didn't happen, your first thought would be like, oh, a Superman, right? Oh, a Superman. Also, what the fuck is he doing in that phone booth? We haven't had phone booths in forever, but you know what I mean? You have a context for that. In this scene that we're looking at in the 1920s, they would be like, a man with a gun. And what's with that levitating spiritualist? That lady's hand is on fire. Like, they wouldn't have superhero to go to. They wouldn't have that cultural referent. They would think other things, which is really, really interesting, right? Is there a movie filming somewhere around here? Where are the wires? Did I miss the camera? Did a grip not interrupt me walking down this street? Right? Like that I think is something interesting. Yeah. A god, right? Which is why superhero games set in ancient Greece aren't really superhero games in that same way. And so what Capers has done, and Godlike did this as well, for Godlike, there was propaganda in universe, right? When superheroes became a thing, in that universe, the Nazis spun it to be like, look, the Ubermensch, they are real, right? The truth of our Thule society, insane eugenics plan, it's this guy. But in the 20s, right, different approach. They would think something else. And so what's neat about the game, Capers does this by establishing superheroes exist. Here is what people think of them, right? Here is the framework for them in a pre-comic book world, which would mean then in Capers, if comic books came out, they would likely be stories of people like Ruby Red, right? It would be like the grim adventures of Ruby Red and pals. And so the comics would be a reflection. They'd be historically accurate, but still superhero comics, instead of being like, we're going to make up a superhero and imagine what that's. Yeah, Hercules is literally a superhero. Exactly. So yeah, very, very cool how that works. So let's look through GMing. I'm looking for, how do we run this game? What do we need to know when we run this game? So Capers cares most, it looks like, about player agency. If you're the GM, right? Pay attention to and give the players the opportunity to do things. Be willing to roll with the punches, right? Improvise. Say no, but try to say yes and, right? The game gives you tools for this, right? If you don't want to say yes and, they can spend Moxie to get that, right? Like if somebody says, I need a train to go by and I need to jump on that train and I need to ride it to Kentucky. I need to get out of here. Is there a set of train tracks nearby? You could say, well, you're downtown. No. But if you spend a point of Moxie, we could say there's a laundry delivery truck nearby that'll get you out of town. Once you're out of town, we can talk about trains, right? So improv with structure, same thing. Rule of cool, like if there isn't something in the rules to let you do a cool thing, make a rule up, right? This is an implementation of the golden rule that says, let the players do cool things because that's what they want to do. That's why they're here. But use the rules, and if the rules don't exist, create a new rule to manage that. Here's how to do it, right? Give cool things a chance. Instead of just say yes to cool stuff, which is the rule of cool that I hate, is the like, cool is more important than the mechanisms. Not true. In this, cool is good. Mechanisms enforce and give structure to cool. Because if all that mattered was saying cool things, we wouldn't need a role-playing game, right? Ask leading questions, great GMing advice, and then set the stage, right? Now, I like this. This is, again, phrasing of stuff we've seen before is really important, right? How do you incorporate that? So like, have fun. Normally I would recoil. I'd be like, you can't tell people to have fun. It doesn't work that way. But what this is saying is figure out what makes the game fun and then do that. Yes, that's great. Because it's not about making fun. It's about discovering fun, right? I think that's great. I think that's really cool. Share the narrative, right? This is like letting players describe stuff. We saw this built into the success and fail mechanism. And then the internet is your friend. I don't know if that's inherently true, but I love that it says there are like lots of other advice out there. Go check it out. Develop your own style. Find advice elsewhere. This game doesn't tell you everything because it couldn't possibly. And yeah, I think, and Mads points out in chat, have fun there is some implied freedom from historical accuracy, right? Like, have fun means figure out what makes this specific game fun for you and then do that thing. And while the game is already taking a step back from sexism, racism, phobias that are present in the 1920s, this is an additional way to say, take a further step back from that stuff if you want, right? Find the things in the game that are interesting and then just do those. And I think that's nice. It's giving you clear advice on how to find the fun in a game. It doesn't just say, this game is fun. We promise. Go do it. Right. Cool. And then we get a whole bunch of additional advice on how to do specific stuff. And I got to say, this kind of commentary is really useful to me in a GM section. I want a GMing section to feel like the game master has played the game a lot and is saying, here's what comes up in the game and how you might deal with that, right? It's both rules and advice, and that advice comes from practical play, right? And to that end, this is interesting. I like it. I think it's an interesting way of phrasing this that I don't know that I would necessarily use, but so house rules. It presents a complete game that can be played as is, but there's no reason you shouldn't modify the game setting or rules to better suit you and your players' preferences. Yes. Agreed. Once purchased, a game like CAPERS becomes the property of the players. Make it what you want to be or play it as it is. It's your call. I don't think I've ever seen it laid out like this. And the authorial voice in CAPERS between things like this sidebar and then the bit here about where is it? Taking time off from the game. I think that's really cool. Like, there's something really nice about the authorial voice where it's conversational in places without being like too informal. Like, it still feels like I'm being instructed on how to play and manage the game, but I like the idea that like you may want to play a different game, or like, here's how to keep from getting burnt out on this game. Put the game aside. This isn't the only role-playing game in the world. Switch up GMs, play a board game, watch a gangster movie, like chill out. How to recharge for this specific game. It's pretty cool. Yeah. And then players shaping the narrative, this kind of thing too. Like, here is how to do this specific thing. It's not just here's the rule, but it's how we've learned to play the game, and then permission to change it once you've engaged in it. It's a nice read. I think the tone is quite good. It feels to me sort of like reading the commentary from the Burning Wheel Codex, which I think does this same kind of advising and teaching in the same way, which is to say very well. So what I do want to keep an eye out for, and I think the game is about to reward me for checking it out. So rewards. How do we do it? How do you get a reward in the game? What does that look like? This is our last question to answer in Jared's 3 questions, right? In CAPERS, what am I going to be rewarded for doing? Now, I already know I'm going to be rewarded for my vice and my virtue, right? Making my character interesting to play around with because of vice and virtue, right? So if I use those, I'm going to get Moxie. I'm going to get Moxie for being cool, engaging in scenes, right? Revealing things about my character, right? So I'm going to engage all of that stuff and get Moxie. But there's also other forms of advancement that we can give out. So if you plan to run a campaign, you'll give the players chances to improve their characters. Character advancement, as described in 2, assumes you advance all characters 1 level every so often. The speed of advancement is up to you. You might advance characters after every game session if you're running a short campaign. You might wait 3 sessions if you want to run a longer one. You have the option of handing out single advancement points from time to time. It allows players to purchase minor advances to get them faster. Also, players saving up will have to wait. If they're okay with it, it's a fine way to handle advancement. Capers tops out at level 5, so plan accordingly. Interesting. Okay. So it seems like it combines milestone XP with the potential for specific rewards with a much more robust inspiration system. So you're getting Moxie as the core narrative influencer reward structure, and that's play your character, do interesting stuff, get Moxie. And then as you play, the GM is going to either level you up as a pacing mechanism. So they could say, all right, at the end of the first arc, right? At the end of issue 3, when you defeat, I don't know, the Grim Jaywalker, then everybody gains a level, right? And then we're going to gain, you'll gain up to 4 more levels, and then your character tops out. You are done. You're at the top of what the game can give you. But you can also hand out advancement points separately to level, which I guess means if you hand out advancement points, you'll bump up to level 2 every 2 points you get. So they give you a bunch of different options. I wonder how those would work. Because as a player, you just don't think about it. I kind of like that it allows you the freedom of milestone so that advancement happens along a story track. And then there's the more strict version, which is Moxie. I wonder how this would feel as a player, because I like player-driven across the board, but I don't think I've really played a game that mixes and matches the two. I guess if you gave the players, you told them their goal, or I guess you could let the players decide when they advance, right? Like when we defeat this guy, or when this happens, or when we build our base, we go up to level 2. Yeah. Interesting. And then I do also like that they recognize other things are rewards, right? End of the game session is a good time to give out other types of rewards, such as a club of their own to run, right? That is a form of reward, but it comes from taking concrete narrative action in the game. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So some alternate optional rules for Moxie, right? We can either have a Moxie pool for the GM altogether. This is almost certainly how I would do it instead of having Moxie for every NPC. Or you can track Moxie with a deck, right? The Moxie deck, you draw cards representing them and they become a hand and you spend them. You can use any card from the Moxie pool for the alternative effect on it. Oh, neat. So you can do generic chips for Moxie, or you can have a randomized, every time you gain Moxie, you draw from a special deck that is worth, that you can use it, or you can use a special Moxie effect that wouldn't normally be available. I'm all Jake. I'm the real McCoy. You're a crackerjack. Oh, cute. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, so like a special... And then you save certain Moxie. I like that. I like granularity to the Moxie, that it has like a flavor to it as well. Yeah. I think you could do that with a standard deck and you could have color indicate. This would be a tarot thing too, using a tarot deck for Moxie, right? Where if you draw a Moxie that is a cup, you can only use it on situations related to interacting with another person, feelings, understanding their emotions, manipulating their emotions, right? The suit would indicate what you can spend the Moxie on. That would be an alternate rule you could use if you want to incorporate tarot into it as well. Neat. Right. Okay, cool. So we have creating regulars, right? How to create NPCs, creating new powers, which hugely important in a game like this. Thank you for giving us a tool set. If you're going to give us a menu list of powers, you have to give us how to make recipes as an additional rule. So it's nice to see that in the game. And then here are our backdrops, which I guess is the game's version of settings, right? With built-in NPCs, some you might recognize. This backdrop, Atlantic City. This is the Boardwalk Empire backdrop, right? Nice. So this is like cities we've already taken and updated to fit Capers. right? Now you can do this yourself, obviously, with whatever city you want. Maybe you want to do, I don't know, Calgary, Alberta in 1920. You can, but you know, you got to go do the research. The internet is your friend. In this case, what do we got? We got Atlantic City. We got Chi-Town, right? We got Chicago. Bunch of characters. Oh my God. Elliot Ness is Vanessa. Vanessa Elliott. Agent Elliot Ness. Yeah. Awesome. That's cool. Yeah, there's Al Capone. It looks like Al Capone is, there we go. Capone is a caper with immense strength who shrugs off physical pain. Okay, good. So he's like throwing cars at you and what have you. Right. Cool. Okay. So there's Al Capone. Mikey the Wrench Sabraco. Fun. Okay, so that's Chicago. We got, of course, New York City. So New York, I was gonna say Arnold Rothstein. Arnold Rothstein, you could very easily use in a setting like this. He could be a caper he's like the Adrian Veidt of the setting, right? Because his whole thing was that he was like super smart and organized and he could like pull all the strings. He would make a great Adrian Veidt character. Yeah. Kansas City would be perfect for this. Yeah, right? Well, and that's the thing is like if you're looking at this and you're like, well, they got all the main ones. They got Boston, they got Detroit, Louisville, Milwaukee, right? Philadelphia, they got all the main ones, but obviously you're thinking like, what about Tulsa? What about Kansas City, right? What about Atlanta? Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, and there were more, right? There's Kansas City there, Cincinnati. Oh, that's cool. These are one pagers. Oh, I thought these were two. Oh, that's cool. So these are like the quicker version. I feel like LA, when you think of the 20s, like you could do 1929 LA. That'd be a good one. When I think of LA, I don't think it really starts coming into its own until the 30s and like film noir, but you could easily do like a late 20s LA game. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. LA noir, like those. Yeah. Noir comes after World War I, right? It's between World War I and World War II. A lot of the characters, especially cops, are like returning veterans from World War I. And then you also have the post-war kind of organized crime period that leads into the 60s. Yeah. Yeah. The interwar period is like noir stuff as well. But yeah, there's crossover for sure. Yeah. How would you handle running a game like this for people who know more about the era than you could ever hope to? Invite them to give you details, but tell them you're not interested in the details. You're interested in the big picture. Then you can incorporate them. Okay, so the way I would do this is make them the lore version of Dave or Dan for my D&D campaigns, right? So when you're like, all right, Lisa, you know everything about LA in 1929. Give me a club. It's going to be a club, like it'll be in a nice neighborhood, and it's the kind of club you would go if you're young and you have a whole bunch of money. Probably you got it from your parents. What kind of club would you go to if you were that guy? And then Lisa would be like, well, if you live in LA in 1929, right? Incorporate their input, but don't tell them at the beginning, like, if I get something wrong, remember, there's no superheroes in 1929 LA. So there might be other things that have changed. You let me know. Bring them on board. Make them your deputy in terms of that stuff. Yeah, cool. Lots of NPCs. Look at these badasses. Oh, yeah. Here we go. All right. So the GM Toolbox, this gives us some alternate Earths, right? When we talked about that. So, you know, what is different about your version? And then if you want to go really wonky on it, this is how you get dimensional travel, right? Where you're like, we have to leave this Earth and we have to go to Earth adjacent 121. And we got to go here because robots run this version of the Earth. 1920s alternate universe, right? So here's one. It's called CAPERS Earth because of Carol Kapik, who invented robots. This is the robot version. There are androids and robots, 1920s. It's kind of fun. We got Mad World. Those with powers are feared, hunted, and murdered. During Mad World's Great War, the Central Powers recruited bloodthirsty capers to slay thousands of American troops. Ooh, so it's like a World War I post-apocalyptic superhero setting. Terrifying. What if the Kaiser had used superheroes to win World War I? Damn. Ooh, an alien one. That's fun. Okay. Omega Earth with flying cars, wrist communicators. I could see all of these being their own separate version of the game, but with like their own powers, their own slightly altered rule set. And they're doing like the developers are doing like there's a Caper Noir and there's like a 60s one where you play like secret agent, right? Is that a thing? I mean, there's historical superhero opportunities abound. So it's nice that we get some little ones at the end of the book. This is a great place for this. And it's like if you've either already played the game a bunch and you want to try something different, yeah, there you go. Capers Noir, Capers Covert, and Capers Off-World. Yeah. Yeah, I like it. Cool. Appendix. So we get our appendices for glossary of game terms, 1920s slang. Again, God, like, thank you for putting this stuff at the end of the book. There's so much stuff that if this were a White Wolf book, they would have started with this and I would have tuned out already. You can take that and you can dry up. And then power index and NPCs. Oh yeah, common names in the 20s. Nice. Good. And then of course, inspiration. Look, what did I say? It's right there. Godlike and adventure. The two games I was just talking about. That's great. So inspiration for this game. If you need some inspiration, here's some things you can check out. This Prohibition documentary is really good. I agree. You should definitely watch that. Boardwalk Empire, which we talked about. Dick Tracy, which we talked about. Sin City, obviously another big obvious choice. I think every role-playing game should have these. Every single one. You could also do Who Framed Roger Rabbit with this game. Yes. Absolutely. Yep. And kudos to Capers. Kudos to Capers for being brave enough, unlike some role-playing game companies, being brave enough to put the games that inspired you. Thank you. Like, I feel like we're all as designers, we're all inspired by all these other games that we play and that we see. And that sometimes people are scared to admit that because they don't want to feel like, they don't want to be accused of like, oh, this is just a ripoff of that other game. And some games belong to a company with a legal team that won't let you do that. But thank you, Small Press Games, for being brave and talking about the other touchstones that are important to you. So if you like this game, as I already mentioned, adventure is also cool and inspiring. Godlike, one of my favorite superhero games. Yeah, most people avoid it from what they perceive to be like legal reasons, but it's okay to just like talk about the things that inspired you. So yeah, lots of good Prohibition era type stuff to check out. Lots of superhero stuff. This is a great place for it. Ending the game with inspiration gives me, and people don't understand this, but if you put something like this at the end of your game, I am more likely now to think to myself like, oh yeah, I haven't watched Sin City in years. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to close the book and I'm going to re-engage with your book mentally when I watch Sin City, which is going to give me ideas about coming back to your game, right? It's a way to draw people back, having gone out and being inspired. It's very cool. So that's our game. That's Capers. It is a superpowered game of gangsters in the Roaring Twenties. It is from Nerdburger Games. You can check it out right now if you want to check out the PDF or the print on demand version. But if you really want to get down, with the game, they're currently kickstarting a deluxe hardcover, which looks like it's almost to its goal, 72%. They're doing a deluxe hardcover version, and I think that there are some pledge levels that get you the PDF as well. Yeah, there you go. So you can get the PDF, you can get pins, you can get the hardcover, you can get the whole Megillah for $45 Canadian or 59 Canadian over on Kickstarter. The link is down below if you're watching this video after the fact. If you're in chat, it's over there. I think wherever chat is for you. ! CAPERS. That'll get you the link. Go and check it out. When I came into this, I was like, I don't know, 1920s, I don't know, superheroes. The mechanisms of the game, as I mentioned earlier, the flipping cards thing is engaging enough that it makes me care about the source material more than I originally was going to. So it's quite cool that the mechanisms have drawn me into the setting, which I think is the reverse for a lot of role-playing games. I think a lot of the time people come in from the setting and they get interested thereafter in the mechanisms. So it's neat to see that flipped back and forth. So if you're interested in gangsters, if you're interested in superheroes, you're interested in the 20s, any of that stuff, definitely go and check it out. That is CAPERS. This has been an RPG First Look, sponsored by Nerdburger Games. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming and checking it out. We will see you next time for another RPG First Look.